Mr. Smith, I'd like to ask you a little bit about the value and importance of in-rem forfeiture. And I'll note that I'm informed a little bit by the Department of Justice's experience dealing with cyber botnets. Cyber botnets were attacking things all over the internet. Cyber botnets don't have an obvious owner to them, but somebody runs them. And in order to proceed against them, the Department of Justice proceeded in rem. It gave notice to the entire world that there was going to be a hearing in court on this day, and if anybody wanted to come and object to their efforts to take down that botnet, they were welcome to show up. There were probably handcuffs waiting for them if they did show up, but nevertheless, it was important that that process be followed. To try to go the other way and identify first the owner and then proceed against them would have been a fool's errand. It was essential that those proceedings be in rem. In general, is that the logic of proceeding in rem against Russian oligarch assets? Why is that form of proceeding so important?
Thank you, Senator. It is for exactly that reason. In fact,
Your microphone?
Thank you, Senator. And it is very important for exactly that reason. And in fact, many of the owners of these botnets are indeed Russians, and some of them are linked to oligarchs. So it's actually a similar sort of similar universe. It's really for the same reason that you mentioned in your opening statement, that if the Russian oligarch class has become good at one thing, it has been very good at obscuring who owns assets at any particular instant.
That's a moving target. They
Absolutely.
can, in real time, shuffle ownership structures through lawyers while they're being pursued, correct?
Absolutely. It's just zeros and ones nowadays. There's nothing that actually needs, from an ownership perspective, it is devilishly difficult. And the Europeans found this out sort of the hard way in many respects as well, because Europe has been a real sort of location for some of this historically that they're now tracking down on.
So proceeding in rem puts the shoe on the other foot and requires
Exactly.
the owner to actually turn up and make their case.
Exactly. Because you
And
know
that
where
is
its property
consistent
is.
with due process.
Exactly. Exactly.
Let me turn to Mr. Michel. There's obviously a national security aspect in hybrid warfare. The world has changed. It used to be that you were at war or you weren't. That's no longer so. Now the U.S. can have national security imperatives well short of a declaration of war and entry into direct armed conflict. You used a very interesting phrase. You said that these oligarchs act as Putin's wallets. Can you describe what you meant by that and what the national security implications of that are for the United States?
Yeah, absolutely, Senator. That's obviously a fantastic question. These oligarchs are not independent businessmen. These are not men, and they are all men who created companies and industries on their own. They are those who swept in following the collapse of the Soviet Union, seized former Soviet-held assets at fire sale price, and now owe their wealth to their links to the Russian government, in this case, President Putin himself. That's the first part of the question as it pertains to how they created their wealth in the first place, how they manage their wealth.
So how are they Putin's wallets, and why does that have a national?
What we have seen thus far, what is absolutely clear, is that President Putin does not maintain assets in his own name. He relies on those that he trusts. He relies on family members, friends, and as we know, the oligarchs themselves, all of them owe their wealth to him. They are only retaining that wealth through their good graces, to their connections to President Putin himself. They are effectively acting on his behalf.
And why does that matter to the United States from a national security perspective while Putin is busily destroying Ukraine and have his troops raping and murdering throughout the countryside?
No, absolutely. This is something that we have opened ourselves up to for decades. We have welcomed this money with open arms, obscuring the ownership, and frankly, we have very little idea as it pertains to what this money has done regarding industry after industry in the West, let alone how it has affected the policymaking apparatus. If we can't track and trace this money, we don't know where it's going, what it's done. Beyond that, we still don't have a clear idea how it funds exactly Putin's war machine. In order to seize these assets, in order to identify these assets, we can proceed from there to finally begin cutting the funding for Russia's aggression abroad, Russia's imperialism. This is a clear case as any.
So the United States could have a clear national security imperative in proceeding against Russian oligarchs short of declaring war with Russia.
Yes, absolutely.
And this is an important tool for us in the hybrid warfare world we now inhabit.
Absolutely it is. Absolutely. This is something of a low-hanging fruit as it pertains to potential tools moving forward.
Last question will be for Professor Stephen. You talked very articulately about the danger of America becoming a safe harbor. I frame this as a frontier existing between rule of law nations and non-rule of law nations. And I discussed the danger to rule of law nations from giving aid and comfort to non-rule of law bad actors by allowing them the shelter of rule of law for the assets that they have stolen or gained through criminal enterprise. Is that what you're referring to by, with your concern about America becoming safe harbor for illicit funds? How would you phrase it?
I agree with the way you phrased it, Senator, and I would only add that the concern that I am articulating is that we are very careful to stay on the side of rule of law nations as we do this, so that we cannot...
Understood.
Thank you.